Welcome to Well, That Didn't Work, a podcast about a group of friends getting together to pretend to be other people, creatures, and things, doing things that mostly don't work out for them. My name's Percy. I'm your host, your narrator, your MC, your games master, your storyteller, and with me I've got...
I am Mike, and for this campaign I'm going to be playing a Nemoidian gambler. His name is Udell Ilvi. But he's found himself on Taurus because he was part of the Trade Federation. He was out there with them, causing havoc and wreaking holy hell. And he ended up kind of cheating over one of his commanders. And in kind, they responded by briskly stranding him. But due to some of the things that's happened in his past, going home is not an option.
And I'm Jason, and I'm playing a human from Onderon, and I am a 18-year-old female, average build, white hair, green eyes, and I have been running around Terrace basically looking to make ends meet, as I've been dropped off here for reasons unknown, except my own, and for reasons of my own making, well, mostly my own making. Due to that, I've been having to live off the street, so I am a professional thief and raconteur and whatever else people need me to do.
And howdy, my name is Rick. I'll be playing a Verpine pilot mechanic. I grew up in the Roche asteroid field, and I am here on Taurus because I was assigned to a secret mission, being the pilot, and I got stuck here when they confiscated my ship. And I like long walks on the beach and pina coladas. So.
And I'm Chris. I'll be playing Varro Dorkan. He's a human protector. I was a Padawan for exactly 2 days for Order 66 happened, and my master thought this was a good place for us to hide out and wait for things to blow over. It didn't go as well as we'd hoped. Even though I could afford to leave, I don't really have any place to go. So here I am on Terrace.
All right, and that is the cast that we're going to be working with for this here Star Wars story. This story is called Urban Stars. So we'll spend the majority of our time on the planet Terrace, which you might recognize from some video games or some comic books or other lore that you might have read about the Star Wars universe. So without too much further ado, let's get started. So I just wanted to go over a couple of house rules. We're going to play Star Wars RPG by Fantasy Flight Games. I'm really excited for this campaign. Spent a lot of time making some really cool stuff. You guys have spent a ton of time, maybe more than me in some cases, making some really cool stuff for your characters. So I'm really excited to get into it, and I have a list of house rules here that we're going to go over just real quick. Just some special things that we're doing specifically and clarifications for some things that are maybe debated on the internet. We don't want to offend anybody on the internet. Good luck.
But that's what the internet's for.
That's what the internet's for. That's right.
Get you.
I thought the
By
internet
not
was for
offending
porn.
someone, we will offend someone.
So as far as XP goes, you can spend your XP at any time during the game. So once you have XP, you can even like retroactively spend it. You have 10 XP sitting in your pocket and you really need a 2 in athletics. Boom, spend your XP. I don't care when you spend the XP. Once it's yours, it's yours. But if you save it and spend it at one of my XP vendors. So basically I've created a list of people who specialize in like combat skills, or martial talents, or like criminal talents, things like that. Like if you visit them and spend your XP with them, you'll get bonuses.
So trainers.
Yeah, so trainers. You'll get extra talents. You'll get maybe even talents that aren't connected to your specific thing. Like maybe you go visit the general skills vendor and you want to spend 5 XP there, and maybe you get a skill added to your career skills.
Like canoes and wedding dresses.
No.
Rick, you're the only one worried about wedding dresses, sir.
So,
I was a wedding photographer.
So that's going to be the extra like XP stuff that we're going to do. I think that's going to be really exciting and fun. The next thing that we're going to focus on is the use of the Force. We're going to do it pretty much exactly as the book states it. I don't want to deviate too far from that, but there is a chance that we could introduce new powers or new ways to acquire powers as we go. So just be ready for that if you're listening along. We are playing Edge of the Empire, but we're including all of the other books. So Force and Destiny, we've even got a character that might have possibly been made using that book. And so there's a pretty good chance that Force powers are going to come into play. And we're going to have some pretty inventive ways for people to learn those as we go along, because I want to make it really intense. And here's the thing. I don't want to run into like a Force Awakens scenario where all of a sudden you're super good at the Force. We're not going to play that way. Crafting, we're going to stick to when you roll the dice, things cancel out. I know that's a hotly debated topic on the internets right now, but when you roll the dice, advantages and threats are going to cancel out. And on that note, I know like in the book there are a lot of things that say like the GM will spend threat. If a player has a unique way to spend threat or despair or something, 9 times out of 10 I'll spend the despair. But if there's a really cool narrative thing that you guys want to do with it, let me know and I will hand that over to you.
AKA Bob.
Yeah. So yeah, we already covered advantage and threat expenditure. Triumph and despair. Like I said, 9 times out of 10, I'll do the despairs because I really like hurting you guys.
That's why we come back every week.
Thanks.
Abuse.
But all of the triumphs and advantages are 100% yours unless you get stuck and you want help. But I'm not going to like offer that without you asking for it.
We do also have the books for reference, so guys out there, those are actually a great place if you're a first-time player. I highly recommend looking at those tables. They're really excellent for first-time players, new players, and even old grizzled veterans like us. They still have good, reliable resourcing for inventive ways to spend triumphs and despairs.
And those things are better to be... It's better to use it to enhance a story than it is to turn around and try and use it as a absolute cut and dry black and white mechanic.
Yeah. So a couple of other things, just kind of housekeeping stuff to go over. Sundering. If your armor or weapons get sundered, they're not going to be sitting here with a 1 out of 3 sunder quality, but nothing happens to them. We've already kind of gone over this in the character creation process, that when something gets sundered, it's going to get worse. It's going to get harder to use. It's not going to be as good as it once was. Its value is going to go down. And just in general, it's never made sense to me in reading through these rule books that when something gets sundered, so it gets partially broken, it functions exactly as intended until it gets sundered 3 times. No, if my vibro sword gets cracked, there's a chance it'll short out. Like, so there's an added opportunity for failure in that.
Yeah, I think the reason why that's there, Percy, is, again, the interwebs. They pretty hotly debated back and forth. I think FFG finally clarified that they looked at it and said it's anything that is carryable, and most people view armor as a worn item, and that way you can't negate a Nemesis's really cool, super awesome armor by sundering it multiple times and then just going straight wound threshold.
Yeah, no, I don't think we would ever get there anyway. Cool. So the last thing, the Destiny pool flips, just a clarification on how we spend those. Basically, you can flip a light side Destiny point at any time to gain an upgrade on your attack roll. You can spend it to introduce, like, I forgot to buy stim packs, but I flipped the light side point, and we had a couple. Like, that's a way you can spend Destiny points. So you can spend it to introduce a fact. Like, if I tell you you're in an empty hallway and you want there to be cover in that hallway just in case, you can spend a light side point to say there are a couple of crates in the hallway, and they'll be introduced into the world. Likewise, I can spend dark side points to upgrade the difficulty of any check you make, upgrade, like, the attack roll of an adversary toward you. And I have been known to flip a dark side point, tell you I'm flipping this dark side point, and wait to tell you what it is. And I always think that builds a lot of tension. It's really fun. I'll do that with despairs too sometimes. If you roll a despair and I'm like, okay, well, that's not happening yet, but it's on the way now. We'll use it that way sometimes. So
sadly, we can't do that for light side points.
No, you cannot. You can't retroactively spend light side points later on.
So, quick question, and again, this is kind of one of those where, it depends on how everybody wants to house rule it. Yep. I've seen it done both ways. When a GM flips a light side point in the same roll, are you going to allow the players to counter with a flipped, or when the GM flips a dark side point?
Yeah.
Are you going to allow the players to offset in that same roll, or do you want to basically have it as I'm upgrading this because this is a potential detriment.
So the way that the rules say the rolling works, the players have first opportunity to flip a point. If the players pass, the GM, or if the players do it, the GM then gets to respond. But if I give you the opportunity, if I forget to say something, yeah, you can flip a point. I don't care. But usually when we're getting ready for a roll, when you're building the pool, you're going to have first go. If you say, no, I'm not going to spend a light side point, and I spend one, you can't then turn around and do it back.
That's the reason why I'm clarifying.
Yep. Yeah, it's a good call. But that's the way it's worded in the book when you're building the dice pool, I believe. If that's not the way it's worded in the book, that's the way I'm going to word it right now.
Just call in, folks, and let us know.
That's right. Yeah, just at me.
Leave your comments below this video.
That's right. At me, bro.
Give us a thumbs up. You ring the bell. I mean, everything you can think of.
The Empire has solidified its grasp over most of the Republic, sundering the feudal pockets of resistance that began to take place after its inception fairly quickly. Though many in the Empire have been subjugated already, there are some who plot in secret, some who would see the Empire pressed out of their territory. On Terrace, an uneasiness grows, as Justice Taniel plots his own move toward power within the Empire's hierarchy. His pawns begin to move in place, but not without a counter being built. A resistance has begun on Terrace, and it has grown strong, and yet remains unnoticed. So your characters do not know each other yet, at all. You are stranded, alone, for the most part. You've all got connections that you've built on Terrace that we've built through backstories that even you as players don't mutually know about. There are a couple of details, mostly the things that we've already shared in kind of the intro, that you know about each other. Like you might be familiar with the gang that Luika used to run with. But beyond that, you probably don't know who she is. You probably couldn't pick her out of a crowd. Except, unless, there's a ruckus in the lower levels of the city, in the Gesso district, near Aderna Falls, a synthetic waterfall separating the Gesso district from the Undercity. The Lu La Lang Arena is a bustle with this evening's activity, the Zing-a-Ring. Luika, roll me an athletics or coordination check against 1 red and 2 purple, whichever one is your better ability. As a Duros, dressed in red robes, attempts to bring a giant hammer down on you from above.
Okay.
That's rude.
That's quite rude, yeah.
You said a red and 2 purple?
1 red and 2 purple, that is correct.
Okay. And this is just to dodge, basically?
Essentially, either dodge or catch the hammer. Depends on, if you're using athletics, you're catching the hammer and not letting it hit you. If you're using coordination, you're dodging. So which one are you using?
I'm using athletics.
You're using athletics. So you're going to attempt to catch this thing in midair.
Correct.
And you've got, what do you look like? Before you make this roll, what does Luika appear as?
Well, she looks like, to basically paint a picture, she stands approximately 5'7", pretty lithe, but if you saw her in her sort of traditional fighter pit gear, she's pretty well shredded. Like, think a cross between Ruby Rose in John Wick 2 meets someone a little bit more like the girl who beat I can't think.
There's
of her
too many ums here. Just what's your video game inspiration for who she
right.
is?
She's basically Ciri.
Okay, cool. From The Witcher?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So that's kind of what we're looking at. Do you have like the white hair?
I have the white hair.
And do you have? We had talked about like you have some dark hair underneath.
Right. So it's got a faded kind of.
It's an ombre.
Yeah. She dyes
for
it
any
white.
of you with wives.
Well, it's dyed white. The part up here where it splits, it's cut
So
short.
you gotta talk into your mind. I'm getting like an echoey version of you.
So it's dyed white. The roots are blackish gray right now, and the underside is clearly black. So it looks like a shadowy hairdo.
Okay, great. So That's Luika. She is poised. Do you have your weapon out?
I do.
And what weapon is that?
It is a vibro sword.
Great. So you're poised to catch this giant hammer. Roll it out.
I believe I'm successful with 2 threat.
How many successes?
3 looks like.
3 successes and 2 threat. Yeah, I believe I'm successful.
No, that's 4.
So for any of you who haven't played Star Wars before, as long as you get 1 success, you're successful. Apparently, Jason hasn't played Star Wars in a while.
No, he's a grizzled veteran.
A grizzled veteran? Veteran.
Yeah, I know.
But
Who learned a Judas spoke, sir?
You played with me long enough to know that I don't like speaking in absolutes.
That's true. Only a Sith speaks in
Speaks in
absolutes.
absolutes.
So yeah, Luika is crouched. She's got her. Is it a vibro rapier or a vibro sword?
Vibro sword.
Vibro sword. So she's got it out, and you've got this Duros in this red robe, essentially, coming at you with this giant hammer, and you can see in between the split of the robe, he also is very ripped. He has kind of a leather belt across his chest and kind of an X pattern. As he comes down with this hammer, you catch it, and his whole body goes just very, very tense, and you see the sinew begin to expose itself as he tries to bury you in the ground with this thing. And the frame freezes. 4 combat directors, that's what we call our pit bosses on Terrace, have gathered their champions to face off in what the Teresians call a combat wheel. The combat wheel is a special type of gladiatorial combat in which 2 wheels spin in opposite directions around a central arena that is not moving, called the amplifier, a zone that drastically increases the rate of damage taken by introducing nerve-damaging agents into open wounds created by weapons while in the zone.
That's nice.
Yeah, it's going to be real interesting.
It's going to be super fun.
All right.
So, Luika, time is kind of frozen in front of you. This is kind of like a pit fighter's stance here. You're taking in the entire area. In front of you, there's a Duros. You're in the central ring of the arena, not the one in the middle that's not moving. You're in like the second ring out, which you know to be the trap ring. Essentially, the trap ring is going to proc if at any point you roll 2 threats.
Which I did.
Which you did. Congratulations.
Ding,
So
ding, ding.
roll me 1d10.
Okay.
So you catch this hammer and you are kind of looking around to gather in the scene as you hear a click.
A 7.
You rolled a 7. Ooh. So you hear this click, and as you're taking in the rest of this scene,
Would I be able to roll perception for this?
no, this is an instantaneous. The trap hits because you rolled the 2 threat. So you hear this click, and 4 slots open up around you and trap you in a cage instantaneously with this Duro.
Okay.
It's a fairly small cage. It's intended for 1 person.
Like a phone booth.
This is close combat.
For anybody that knows
It's-
what a phone booth
yes.
is.
It's intense.
Police call box.
Wait a minute. But it's bigger on the inside.
You would hope that, but no, it's not. So as this trap grabs you guys, and it only lasts for a round, so it's going to wrap you in there for essentially a round of combat and then disappear. It'll collapse back on itself. But the wheel is still moving as you do this, and you notice in the distance a Zabrak with purple spots kind of all over her body wields a blaster pistol and a whip, wearing a blue leather jumpsuit. And she is approaching a dark-skinned human male wearing a tattered and cracked laminate armor suit. Probably got it off of an old dead clone trooper. And he wields 2 vibro hand axes, barbarian style. What do you do at this point?
I would take basically my vibro sword because I figured I used it to help deflect / catch the blow.
Sure.
So I'm going to kind of let the hammer slide off as I go for the jugular across his neck because it's close quarters and I would have advantage.
So it's very, very close quarters, and you've got essentially a long sword. So you can do that, and I'm going to give you 2 setbacks to the melee roll.
That's fine. 2 purple and 2 setbacks.
Yes, 2 purple and 2 setbacks. This guy's got no adversary.
Cool. All right. Here I roll. I am successful with no threat.
How many successes?
1 success, no advantage, no threat.
One. And so what's your damage?
My damage would be it would be a 6.
6 damage. And Vibro Sword has the pierce quality of how much?
2.
And how much does yours have? I think I
2.
can't remember if we had. What did we decrease? So your Vibro Sword, as we kind of zoom in on it, taking a gash out of this guy's collarbone, essentially, we see a crack in it. And what effect did that crack have?
Well, it's kind of chewed up. If you know Zabraki from Bleach's sword, basically it looks like it's been chewed up. It's been through the ringer a few times.
Okay.
So even the vibro portion, that monomolecular edge, is kind of basically worn and faded down. It's looking like it needs to be sharpened in the worst possible way.
Yeah. So what did we do mechanically to it? I just can't remember off the top of my head.
We took the defensive off,
okay,
and we gave it the sundered 1 quality. So basically, it's a chip blade. It doesn't have that fine edge. It almost looks serrated almost, but it's not serrated.
So Pierce 2?
Pierce 2.
Yeah, it
and
almost
Vicious
looks
1.
like a flamberge, but it's not.
Correct.
All right, great.
And
so
don't
Pierce
forget
2?
that. And don't forget that Vicious 1, but I didn't have anything to crit.
If you critted, you would.
Yeah,
Vicious 1
but
would matter.
just for the folks at home.
Cool. So he is going to, at this point, drop the hammer and take. So he's going to drop his hammer because it's a very large hammer. He would not be able to swing it in this area. So he drops it and is going to use his shoulder to try to pin you against the wall. So what is your athletics skill?
My athletics is rank 1, and I have a brawn of 3.
All right, so he's going to try to pin you against that wall with a straight brawn check. And he gets... I can't see. This is why I don't use dice trays.
He fails. Because you rolled that over, I
Did I?
believe. Did he roll that over? Did you see his dice roller?
I looked over to the side, so we'd have to check it post.
I'm
Here,
pretty sure it was that.
We'll just re-roll it.
Okay.
I hate dice rolls. I can't see over them. I'm in a tiny chair.
Well, damn.
Not good.
No.
Not for him.
No. I'm in the deep. Well, he did take 3 threat, so...
He does take 3 threat, which is going to hit another trap. So that probably
Which
not
could be
very
bad
good
for
for
you,
you
too.
because you're kind of sitting here in the middle of this.
He did,
So,
however, triumph.
He did, however,
Ouch.
triumph. So, and he got a bunch of success. So he's sitting on 4 successes and a triumph with 3 threats. Somebody roll me a d10 to see what trap pops.
I'll roll it since I'm stuck in this trap. It's an 8.
And an 8 is not going to be good for either one of you. So he pins you against the side of this cage, and your foot kind of slips through the crack of the cage and slips and hits this trap lever. And the floor underneath you guys separates very quickly, and essentially a spring cushion boing hits you guys into the ceiling of the cage. And you are going to take 3 damage each.
I want to watch the cartoon version of this. You know,
Right? And just kind of wham, hits him real hard. Like this is something you might see on Ragnarok.
Yeah.
Hits him real good for 3 damage. Now that doesn't ignore soak. So if you've got 3 soak, you wouldn't take any damage. This guy has enough soak to absorb it. For his triumph, though, you are not only successfully pinned, but that's between that springing and him tackling you essentially into the side of this cage, your sword flings off and lands in the central ring, the amplifier.
Great.
Yes, and it's at this point that we're going to shift the scene over, and under the stands, the crowd bustles back and forth. Some of them are hunting for a bookie or two. A lot of people are looking for the savory refreshments spread throughout the Colosseums under the stadium, the concessions, as they were. And we pan over to this large group of humans and aliens scrambling for dice and cards and throwing credits at a table. And we shift over, and in the middle of it all, under a glaring spotlight, we see a Nemoidian toss a hollow projector into the pot. Mike, what does Udell claim is on this hollow projector as collateral?
I think Udell would claim that this is an unknown smuggling route.
Ooh, so he's saying this is going to change the way you smuggle.
Correct.
So anybody unsavory here is going to really want that.
Absolutely.
All right. So the dealer looks at you kind of quizzically and looks to the other two people still at this table with you. It's been a long day of gambling so far. You were here before the fight started, and you expect to be here after. And you look to these two other people, and they kind of give you an angry grimace, but they both nod. Like, yes, we'll accept that. If it's a real thing, we'll accept. We'll let you keep playing. You haven't had the best luck today. You're almost all out of money.
Yeah, unfortunately. Sometimes you win them, sometimes you lose them.
I came here to chew bubble gum and spend credits.
And I've been spending credits.
And I'm out of both. I got this broken hollow projector. I promise it's got smuggling routes.
It's fantastic stuff. You definitely want it.
That's right. So, you get dealt your cards. Are you going to cheat your way up?
Oh, absolutely.
You're going to cheat your way up. Okay, cool. So you're going to roll your skullduggery?
It's actually
or deception.
It's a deception check. You have the option for skullduggery, you have the option for cool, and you have the option for deception. And in some cases, depending on the game, computers. But in this case, we're going to go with...
In this case, we're going with the standard 3. So you're going to try to deceive these guys. Let's roll against the dealer's perception. Now, this dealer is very protective of his individuals. Now, normally it's going to be an average check. Just 2 purples.
Right.
The dealer's watching you, though. You just put in what could be a hinky hollow projector. So we're going to do 2 reds.
2 reds. All right.
As your difficulty.
All right. Are we using my cards? Or are we using their cards?
Were you able to convince them to use your cards?
That I don't know. I mean, that's I'm going to leave that to GM call.
I think you probably came over and you invited people to a game of sabacc, and you said, just to make sure that, and I'll let you flip a lie type point to say this is the case, just to make sure that you guys know that I'm legit, I'm going to let this guy shuffle and deal.
Fair enough. Let's go ahead and flip one.
Cool. And so basically this is an quote impartial third party.
All right.
Who might be somebody that you know.
Maybe. All right. So here comes the check. Let's see what happens here. Ooh. All right. So I see.
Mike.
Sorry, it looks like there are 2 successes and an advantage in there. However, now we go with the fun gambling roll. 2 light side points, that's an extra 2 successes and 2 advantages.
Awesome. So you are able to count your cards. You've got a marked sabacc deck, correct?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so you're able to watch these things as they fly out. You play maybe a couple of rounds before you get the hand that you know you can win.
Well, I had to sucker them in somehow.
Absolutely. And so you hustle these guys pretty good, and they both get extremely angry.